Happy New Year. Can you believe we made it to 2023? Well, I hope you've got a great year planned, because we certainly do here on the podcast. We are kicking off the year with something very special, something very near and dear to my heart, a true pillar of my childhood, and probably yours too. What am I talking about? Well, throughout the entire month of January, we are dedicating this podcast to none other than the green-slimed, orange-logoed nostalgia machine. That's right, I'm talking about Nickelodeon. Each episode this month will cover a different area of the Big Orange and what we're calling the New Year's Nonstop Nickelodeon Extravaganza. So kick back, relax, and enjoy as my buddy Derek and I talk all about Nicktoons on this week's episode of Generation S.
What is it?
It's time to go back.
Welcome.
Welcome back to Generation S, a podcast about growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. Welcome to 2023. Happy New Year, and welcome to a very awesome kickoff. All January, we are doing the New Year's Nonstop Nickelodeon Extravaganza. My name is Dan Kemp, and joining me for today's episode is the co-founder of Texoma Esports and my friend of over 15 years, Derek Taylor. Derek, welcome to the show, man.
Dude, thank you for having me, man. It's been such a long time since we've talked, but
it has. Before we started recording, you said it. You're like, dude, I don't think we've actually talked like verbally for like I think since 15 years ago, 2006 or something.
06, yeah.
Yeah, because we were hanging out that summer before you went off to college, and I mean, we've kept in touch. We've texted and Facebook and everything like that, and we keep in touch pretty consistently, but never, I mean, I don't know, is it a guy thing? Like we just don't call?
I think so. It's weird. It's like I can sit here and talk to you all day, like for gaming and stuff, but you try to call me on the phone, I'm letting it go to voicemail. Like
yeah. I'm the same way though. No, I mean, I have a few friends that I'll call on the phone and chat, but for the most part, it's over text, it's over Facebook or whatever. But so I don't know. I think it's fine. We're obviously we stay in touch. Actually, you're one of the first people I reached out to. There's a few people, but you're one of the people I reached out to when I decided to start doing a podcast to kind of get your thoughts on some things, and been incredibly helpful. So I knew I wanted to get you on the show, and I figured I think I asked you, I said, what do you want to talk about? What could we talk about for your first episode on the show? And I think you said cartoons. So I said, all right, well, cool. Let's narrow it down. So I decided, so what I'm doing here, guys, by the way, and I sort of hyped this up in previous episodes, but I've decided that the entire month of January is going to be dedicated to a very large part of my childhood, probably yours, if you grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s and had some semblance of a TV routine or TV schedule. We're talking Nickelodeon all month long. And today's episode is going to be starting off with what I first remember, first and foremost when it comes to Nickelodeon. We're talking about Nicktoons, the cartoons that were, I guess you would say, exclusive to Nickelodeon. They were created by Nickelodeon because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but I know later on they would get cartoons that were not Nickelodeon originals, but they would air them. But I think early on it was all them, right? Like a lot of the original ones.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember when like Cartoon Network came into the game. But yeah, a lot of things it was either Nickelodeon or Disney.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that like, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I know that like Doug jumped ship from Nickelodeon to Disney at some point.
Yeah,
later.
well, because ABC bought had the rights or something, and so yeah, it kind of shifted over. But you still, I mean, looking back and like when you see things coming out that are nostalgic, you don't see Doug tied to the Disney stuff. It's still Nickelodeon. So either they got the rights back, or I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, but so all right. Well, listen, before we jump into the Nicktoons themselves, let's talk cartoons from our childhood. So you mentioned Disney. I definitely watched a lot of the Disney Channel cartoons, like Rescue Rangers and Tailspin and all those. You know what I mean? So Cartoon Network, I didn't watch as much. My brother did. Like he loved like Dexter's Laboratory, and he loved watching Ed, Edd n Eddy and all those. I didn't watch him as much because I was really I was a Nickelodeon guy for the most part. Some Disney cartoons, but Nickelodeon is really where most of my animated viewership came from. Well, what about you? Like, those are kind of the big three. So where would you say your viewing kind of lied?
I think mine fell between Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, especially when I got into like my teenage years when Toonami hit the scene with all the bringing anime to the scene for the first time to the West, I guess.
Is that how you got into anime? Was Toonami?
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Every day after school, getting home and just waiting for Dragon Ball Z to come on.
Nice. Well, I had a few friends, and again, that's one that I never got into anime. So I want to do an anime episode for the podcast, but it's one of those where I got to get somebody on here that's going to be able to kind of guide me through it because I don't know a lot about it. I watched a little bit of Pokemon, and that's basically it. So I would be very, very green on that, but I'm cool with that. I know there's a lot of people that have actually requested. I'm thinking of 5 right now that in the last 2 months have told me, dude, do an anime episode. So it will happen. Probably not until at least February, because this whole month, like I said, all dedicated to the big orange blimp that we know and love. So, all right, man. Well, listen, let's jump into it. Actually, before we do, I kind of hyped you up and introduced you as the co-founder of Texoma Esports, but I want to give you a chance to kind of share out, what your business is and what you guys do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, yeah. A couple of buddies and myself, we started Texoma Esports. We are an event organizer in Oklahoma, Texas region. That's where you get the Texoma from.
Yep.
We primarily focus on running tournaments, heavily focused on Super Smash Ultimate, but we have branched out. We've done some Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, different fighters, but
so mostly fighting games, though.
It's mostly fighting games. Haven't quite got into like the first person shooters or Rocket League or sports games or anything yet, because you need a lot more equipment for that. So
oh really? So there is a difference then as far as what you need to do?
I mean, it's just a lot easier for people to bring a Nintendo Switch than to bring an entire PC or a PlayStation.
That's a good point.
So that's the biggest thing is Smash is just easy, and there's a huge skill window that people can jump in and play from all levels. So it's not uncommon to see 10-year-olds fighting 35-year-olds like me in the same game that they love. So and kicking my butt.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what I've noticed too. So this was actually, and I know we're talking Nicktoons today, but I do want to talk a little bit about Smash here for a minute, because the first one I played was the one that's out on the Nintendo Switch now, Smash Ultimate, and I love it. I do love it. I'm not great at it, but at the same time, like, it's one of those where like it's easy to learn, but it's hard to master.
Yeah.
But there's a lot in between there where, I mean, I could theoretically play against somebody who's really good and I could win, or at least come very close to winning, because some of it's like hardcore skill as far as like hitbox frame rates and all that stuff. But at the same time, like if you get lucky and get a really good item, depending on how you're playing, like I know there's some rules in tournaments with like no items or whatever, but if you get a good item or whatever and you're wiping the screen, like you can get lucky a little bit too. So I do like that. Like you said, you can play anyone, pretty much any skill set can get in and have fun together. And you're not going to see like one person dominate and just be like, it's just not fun. Like it's genuinely fun to play regardless of who you're playing against.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but anyway, so that's cool, man. So you got a little esports thing going on down there in the Texoma area. Is that a term, or did you make that up? Texoma.
There's an actual couple Texoma like schools and stuff, but it's just something that we kind of put together because I'm kind of like in between Oklahoma City and Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're kind of the bridge for the two competitive scenes of Oklahoma City. Because, I don't know if you're familiar, but anybody from Texas or Oklahoma probably knows there's a huge rivalry in everything that they do.
Well, that's
between
true. I know
Oklahoma
football
and Texas.
is a big rivalry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess Oclexis just sounds too much like a weight loss drug. So.
Yeah.
Texoma's good. I like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, listen, let's jump into it. Let's talk Nicktoons. So, really what we're going to do today, we're going to cover really kind of the first The first early Nicktoons. So you have the first big three that came out in 1991 on the same day, actually. Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy. And then soon after that, you had like Rocko's Modern Life, Odd Real Monsters, and so on and so forth. So I mean, the latest one I remember watching came out in probably 2001, and it was the Fairly Odd Parents. And I know, so that's when I stopped watching because I think I just started watching other stuff. What's the latest one that you remember watching, like from your childhood?
I believe Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay,
and that was like, it was back going to the anime stuff. That was kind of Nickelodeon's attempt at an anime. So
yeah, that's right, because I've never seen it, and I know you're going to shame me because I haven't, and I've heard such good things about it. But and I always thought it was like a Japanese dub, and that's why I always thought it was like something they imported from Japan, but it was a Nickelodeon original that was kind of animated in the style of a traditional Japanese anime. Right,
and it is so good. You should watch it.
I need to. No, it's I swear it's on my list. I have to, because I know there's like 60 episodes or something like that to watch. So it shouldn't be that hard to get through.
Nah.
So. But anyway, well, listen, if I can get through 250 plus episodes of SpongeBob, Avatar is no problem.
Oh, so. Yeah.
Which, by the way, dude, like we'll get to SpongeBob in a bit more detail because I want to kind of go through chronologically and just touch on them. But holy shit, SpongeBob's been around for 23 years at this point.
It's crazy that it's still going.
Yeah, well, and I know there was like a big break. There's technically only been 13 seasons. I'm not acting like I'm this encyclopedia. I have Wikipedia pulled up in front of me, folks. I'm not like, I swear I'm not just memory, So anyway, but there's like almost 300 episodes of the show, and it is by far the longest running Nickelodeon animated series of all time. Like, not even close.
Yeah.
I think the only one that even sort of comes close is Rugrats, and that is still over 100 episodes behind. So anyway, well, listen, let's start with these and kind of go through. And I really, we don't have a lot of structure for this today, but I want to touch on the cartoons themselves, and then maybe shift gears a little bit to, the merchandise or any other, like related properties, video games, or, anything at like the Universal Studios, whatever, related to Nicktoons, and kind of just see how that unfolds. But let's start with it, man. So alphabetically speaking, and the first one that came out was Doug. And so I mean, what are your thoughts on Doug, man? Did you enjoy Doug?
Dude, I loved Doug. Like, it's one of those shows that's just kind of stuck with me for years. Like, I'll find myself doing the like,
I did it today. My kids hate it. It drives them crazy.
Dude, I do it all the time.
I do.
It's just entwined into my brain.
Oh my god! So it's just
yeah, dude.
Oh my god, one of the best theme songs. It's just because it's so chill and unique. And so for those who may have forgotten about Doug, I'll just give a brief synopsis. Doug was about an 11-year-old boy named Doug Funny. He and his family moved to Bluffington, a random city in Midwestern America. Did they ever give it like a state? I don't think they do. It's just some randoms.
I don't think so. You've already said
Midwestern America.
You've already said more than I remember. So,
so he's 11 years old, and he makes a bunch of friends. The first episode he moves there, including Skeeter Valentine, who is blue for some reason. Actually, that is one thing I remember about the show, because not a lot of other shows have really ever done that since then. And you can't really count The Simpsons because everyone was basically yellow in that one,
right?
Or a variation of yellow. But in Doug, like, you had characters that were like weird colors.
Yep, there's blue and green.
There's purple.
And yeah.
I mean, so I don't know. I don't know if that. I mean, obviously it was a creative choice and it was intentional, but I mean, it was a really cool way for me of, like, I guess, tackling diversity.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Like, if you were to watch it in black and white, they all kind of look like they were the same, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, they're different colors, but it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that was intentional or not. I've never done a lot of research on it, but I do love that it felt like a really kind of diverse show without being like a heavy-handedly diverse show. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say, oh, we've got this token minority, because what are you going to say? Oh, they got the blue guy. Okay, let's check that off the list. It's like, no, they're different colors, and it didn't matter, and it had nothing to do with, the show itself, or, you know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of cool.
I agree.
So, but no, huge fan of Doug. It was on Nickelodeon for 4 seasons, then it moved over to, actually, funnily enough, moved over to the Disney Channel. But it's known as Doug on Nickelodeon. Like it's you don't think of Disney with, if you do, I mean, then you didn't really watch the true Doug, because to me that wasn't like it wasn't canon Doug. You know, and I know they came out with a movie and all that stuff, but
listen, no, Nickelodeon had the Doug origin story. Okay,
it really did. Yeah, the first episode, man, how he got to Bluffington and all that. So anyway, for me, 2 thumbs up for Doug. Loved it. I'd watch it again if it was on. If I were to catch it on a stream, I will absolutely watch any episode of Doug.
Yeah,
you know,
that scene of him slipping on the ketchup packet is just so vivid in my mind. Where
and he gets all over Roger's boot.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought, man, that's the longest ketchup slip I've ever seen in my entire life. It was impressive. It really was.
It really was.
Oh man. Well, listen, maybe we'll do deeper dives on some of these shows, but I do want to kind of, because there's a lot to get through. Actually, I forgot how many Nicktoons there actually were that I did watch. So, let's go ahead and talk about, to me, is the echelon of Nicktoons is Rugrats.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, because not only did you have 9 seasons of the original series between 91 and 2004, you then had the spin-off series that I did not watch, but a spin-off series nonetheless called All Grown Up, which had another 5 seasons on top of that. So you essentially had a 1991 to 2006 run of Rugrats.
Yeah, I didn't watch all 5 seasons of the of All Grown Up, but I enjoyed it for what it was, because it was like growing up with those characters and finally seeing them like kind of your age at the time anyway.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, we were maybe because it came out in 91. I would have been 4, so I mean maybe a little older than them. But by the time they hit All Grown Up, basically they're teenagers. We were teenagers, and I maybe caught a couple episodes here and there, but I wasn't watching it like sitting down to watch it. But I do remember it. I thought it was really, because they had like on the original series they had like an All Grown Up episode, right, where it was like a what if kind of deal, where they like, I think they like ran into, like they got into the closet and like started imagining themselves as like teenagers.
I think so, yeah. And I guess people responded to that well.
Yeah,
that's why they made the spinoff, right?
I think that's what it was. It was that it was so popular. They said, okay, well, let's just make this a whole series, and again, 5 seasons. So obviously, it was popular.
Yeah, it was doing well.
I was almost 18 at that point, so I really wasn't watching stuff like that as much. But anyway, no, Rugrats, man, that one to me is such. Because again, they're babies, but I love the fact that it was all about like using your imagination and tackling simple problems, but like being treated like a big deal, right? That was the whole thing. Like even like the first episode, right? Tommy's first birthday, where he wants to become a dog like he wants to be like his dog. So he wants to eat dog food and turn into a dog. Like that is the simplest, most childish thing. But I mean, maybe not like exactly, but how many of those episodes could we resonate with? It was like, oh my God, as a kid, I wanted to have, remember the episode where they just wanted to play with the box, right? They turned the cardboard box into like a fort, or a spaceship rather, and like, wings to fly with. And so how many of us did that? You know what I mean? There's so many things that these kids pretended to do that even as we were a little bit older, I guess that's the idea, is that the stuff that they were pretending to do is stuff that we would do at 6 or 7 years old. They were just doing it as 1-year-olds, but it was the same stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, yeah, that thing that Rugrats had, they had at least 2 movies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had Rugrats, then you had Rugrats in Paris, and then you had the Rugrats Go Wild, which I never saw.
Oh, was that the Thornberrys crossover?
It was. That was the crossover episode, or crossover movie, I should say. I never watched that, but we will definitely, we'll get to Wild Thornberrys, because that's one that I have a lot of good memories of too. But let's round out the OG trilogy of Nicktoons here with the Ren and Stimpy show. I'd say of the 3, this was definitely one that was not necessarily quite for kids compared to the other 2. What are your thoughts on Ren and Stimpy?
I remember loving Ren and Stimpy for whatever reason. I remember it being the greatest thing ever. And then probably 5 or so years ago, I was like, I'm going to go back and watch Ren and Stimpy, because I just remember it being just amazing. Yeah. And dude, I don't know what is going on in that show. Like,
it did not age as well.
It does not age well. It is a fever dream. Like, there's just, I feel like a lot of drugs or something where
Listen, I'll tell you right now, it's my wife's favorite Nicktoon. Like it's one of the few that we own on DVD in our house, but I don't think she's seen it in recent years. I feel like she would agree, but if I were to, because I agree, I went back and watched some of it. I'm like, I should say this. I watched the episodes that I'd seen as a kid that I remember liking.
Yeah.
And they were okay, but like as an adult, kind of looking, stepping back and looking at them, like, dude, what the hell is going on? Like,
dude, it's wild. Don't get me wrong. There's some things, like Log and Powdered Toast Man and stuff like that. Stuff is like,
but there's so many things that went over our heads with that show.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, what's one that I remember? Like, it was something. There was an episode where, like, I think it was like Ren was sick and like had to get a sponge bath or something, and was just like making this weird. So like, again, like as a kid, you don't think about some of these things, but then as an adult, like I'll tell you right now, the age I was when I watched this, I wouldn't let my kids watch that show.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely.
And it's funny because actually Beth, my wife, like she wasn't allowed to watch the show, but she did anyway. Her dad let her watch. Her mom said no, but her dad let her watch it. And so I think because it was almost like that forbidden fruit show that maybe was for older kids. I don't know who the audience was for that, because it was a Nicktoon, but at the same time, like there's really not much in that show that was like age appropriate.
No.
At all.
No.
No, like you had so much, like there's like just so many naked people in that show. That's like one thing I remember is like naked fat people walking around. So you're not seeing any of the bits or whatever, but like because their fat rolls are hiding it, but they're very anatomically correct and shiny and weird looking and gross. It's a gross show.
It is very grotesque. So
I mean,
if you guys have serious memories of watching Ren and Stimpy, I implore you to go and rewatch those episodes and see how you feel about them today.
I would be curious. Let us know, because if they like, I'll tell you right now, I could just as easily go back and watch Doug or Rugrats and have a great time and enjoy those shows.
Yeah,
because they're easy to follow. They're simplistic, but not too simplistic. They don't insult your intelligence.
They're relatable.
There's maybe a couple of like grown-ups would get it jokes, but nothing crazy. Like I remember there's one episode where Grandpa in Rugrats, where Grandpa is do you know the one I'm talking about? Yes, where he's babysitting the kids, and he's like, "I got this video for you, and then I got Lonely Space Victions. That's for after you go to bed." And I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, "Oh, he's watching a sci-fi movie. It's probably scary."
Yeah.
No, he rented a freaking porno.
Yep.
But. But that's fine. Again, that's still nothing compared to the perversion that was Ren and Stimpy at times.
Right. Absolutely.
So, but anyway, so that was kind of the OG trilogy. They all came out in the same year on the same day back in 91. And then it wasn't another 2 years before we got a new Nicktoon, that being Rocko's Modern Life. Now, what are your thoughts on Rocko's Modern Life? Because I personally think it has aged better than Ren and Stimpy, but it still has a lot of inappropriate humor.
Yeah, I think that one was definitely trying to get at least the teenagers, I guess. I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely a trip for sure.
Yeah.
Good old Wallaby.
No. Well, it was weird because it was all anthropomorphic animals. So, shoot, I forgot. I didn't do like rundowns for Rugrats or Ren and Stimpy on what they're about. But Rocko's Modern, whatever, who cares? If you haven't seen Rugrats or Ren and Stimpy, then why are you listening to the show? Anyway, but Rocko's Modern Life, and again, you've probably seen it, but just in case you haven't, was about a wallaby who worked at a comic book store with his best friend was a giant cow named Heifer, and he had an OCD turtle friend named Filbert. Was he OCD or there was something going on there?
I'm not sure if he was OCD. He was neurotic for sure.
He was neurotic. Yeah, he was. I'm nauseous. Oh, fish sticks. He was just this little. Like, I had a friend like that in school, so I very much could relate to Filbert. He was just very. Don't just stay away from me, please. All the germs. Anyway. But no, man, that was one. Again, there was a lot of gross stuff that happened, but it was definitely not as, I guess, fever dream-ish as Ren and Stimpy. Like there was plots to the episode. And like you had a consistent setting. There was gross stuff, and there was stuff that, again, as a kid, went over your head, like the whole episode where Rocko is working as like a sex line worker. Do you remember that episode?
I do not. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't watch too much of Rocko.
Okay, so that wasn't as much your thing?
Nah, I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I remember watching
I watched
it,
a lot.
but not enough to recall.
No, that one I watched
episodes.
a lot of. No, I loved Rocco's Modern Life because it was so fun because you had all these weird characters, but it was just Rocco living his life with his buddies, and weird stuff happened, and it was a lot of fun. It was gross, but it was not as gross as Ren and Stimpy. Like I could get away with watching that, as a kid more so than Ren and Stimpy.
Right.
But anyway, so all right, well, let's keep moving through. We're now at night.
Before we move on,
sorry.
did you watch because then they did like a new season of it on Netflix, I think.
Well, it was a movie.
Was it a movie?
It was. I forget what it's called. I have not watched it in entirety yet. Like I started watching it, and then just in this day and age, man, like for me to watch a movie, it takes me like 3 days. Like I just can't sit for a movie in one sitting because I have so much going on. And so I think I had started and just never went back to it. I didn't dislike it by any means. And in fact, what I watched of it really made me feel like I was watching an old episode, but it was definitely modernized because they talk about modern technology and all this stuff.
Yeah, wasn't it like them getting like a new cell phone or something was part of it?
Something like that. Yeah. So it was there it is. I found it. It was Rocco's Modern Life Static Cling, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
But I know part of it, they get a new smartphone. They have a whole spoof on Starbucks being everywhere. So I mean, it's kind of cool. Like I said, it's still targeted at the people that would have watched it back in '93 when it came out. So I thought it was pretty cool. So let's fast forward a year. We have a new Nicktoon introduced in October of 1994. Another one that I really loved. I actually just watched this the other day. Real Monsters.
Dude,
do you remember that show?
Yes, Real Monsters was. I remember the show. I remember the video game. Like, yeah. Dude, I loved that show so much.
It's a great show because what I loved about it is that, and it's funny because it came out October 29th, 1994. It was a Halloween show that you could watch year round, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, for those who may not have seen it, Real Monsters was almost like if you had Harry Potter, but with monsters instead of wizards. They're these monsters. They go to monster school. It's I guess, honestly, to me, if it was almost a setup for what would become Monsters Incorporated from Disney Pixar.
Yeah, now that you think, yeah, I could see that.
Because the whole premise of the Real Monsters is they go to school and learn how to scare people, right? I mean, it's what monsters do. They learn how to scare and they get graded on their scaring.
Yep.
And then in Monsters Incorporated, they get paid to scare people and generate fuel for where they live. So it's a little different, but I mean, it's the whole general premise of going in and sneaking in and scaring people.
Yeah, I never actually really thought about that. I could definitely see that being an inspiration for that movie.
Yeah, well, and it was also the first of several, I guess, with the Class Geek Supo animation. Like, it had a very distinct animation style to it that you would see kind of picked up again in some other future Nicktoons. Mm-hmm. But this was kind of the first one to have like the weird body shapes and I remember everyone had like caterpillar looking lips and stuff. It was just, I mean, it was very, but it was a very distinct style. It was kind of gross at times because they did have, I mean, they lived in a sewer or whatever. So it was a little bit gross. It's still, we're still not even touching Ren and Stimpy gross. Yet.
Yeah.
Like this is but it was weird. But again, it wasn't like inappropriate. Like that one was, age appropriate for a kid. Like I was born in 1987. I would have been 7 when that came out. That's pretty much right in line with, what I would have been watching at the time. So, but no, big fan of that show.
Who's your favorite monster in that show?
Like of the 3?
Yeah.
So you have Ickis, Oblina, and Crumb. I mean, I like all of them. I think probably Crumb, though.
I knew you were going to say Crumb.
Yeah, because honestly, as an adult, he's probably the one I could closely relate to.
I mean, we're both bearded, bald men. We look a lot like Crumb, yeah.
We are Crumb, If I raise up my arms, my armpits do not smell like they should most of the time. I find myself making Crumb sounds all the time. Like I'll just...
For those that don't know, Crumb was basically a humanoid monster where his stomach was his face and he held both of his eyes in his hands.
Which I thought was really cool because that meant like he almost had like built-in surveillance cameras. He could throw his eyeball, and he would throw his eyeballs around to like see what was going on. I thought that was really cool. Again, something stolen by Toy Story about 10 years later with Mr. Potato Head, but I digress. No, man, Crumb was great, dude, because he was just so chill. He was kind of weird, but he was the friend you would have wanted to have. If you were at monster school, he was the one that was like kind of simple, but like loyal. You know what I mean? He wasn't like Ickis I liked because he could like grow huge into like a giant rage monster if he got mad, but he was kind of like a wimp.
Yeah, he was more scared than the kids he was scaring.
So basically, if you were to compare Icus, Oblina, and Crumb to Ron, Harry, and Hermione, I would say Harry is most like Crumb. And then you've got Icus is most like Ron Weasley, who was always scared of things, right? You think about that. And then Hermione, of course, is Oblina, who was like the teacher's pet know-it-all.
Right. Yeah.
So, that's how you could kind of equate them to something a bit more modern in Harry Potter.
I don't know how I feel about learning that the 90s Nickelodeon shows was the premise to mega blockbuster hits later.
Yeah. They walked so that these other franchises could fly. Man, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's been proven or not, but I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of evidence here to discuss this further as far as what did Nickelodeon do first and sometimes better. Well, and it's funny you mentioned franchises. Harry Potter technically was written in the early 90s, so maybe she was watching All Real Monsters and got inspired by it. I don't know.
Maybe that's what I'm choosing to believe that now.
I mean, listen, yeah, it's our headcanon, right? That's what it's called, headcanon. Anyway. All right, man. Well, that's a great show. Big 2 thumbs. So far, I've enjoyed all these shows. I mean, the only one that maybe is a middle of the road meh is Ren and Stimpy, but I think you agree with that too.
Yeah, we enjoyed them at the time, though.
Well, for sure. All of these I loved at the time, including our next one. We actually had 2 shows come out in 1996 within a week of each other. The first being Hey Arnold, and then we had Kablam. So let's talk Hey Arnold for a second. That's another one that I was a huge fan of because at this point that was 96, so I was 9 and they were in 4th grade in that show. I think I was maybe 3rd grade, so right around the same age as I was. So I almost kind of could relate to it, but I mean, did you watch Hey Arnold as a kid a lot?
Yeah, dude. Hey Arnold's great. The theme song alone is such a bop.
Yeah. Well, it's like jazz. There's 2 versions of it, though. Do you remember that?
I did not know there was 2 versions of it.
There is. So, like the first, how many seasons? There's 5 seasons. So I don't know when they switched over to the new theme song. The original one was kind of the, saxophone, jazzy. The second one had that, but then you threw in a bit of like an electric guitar or electric bass in there as well. So if you get a chance, jump on YouTube and like just look up Hey Arnold theme song versions. There's a couple, and it's the same melody, but it's just different instruments and a different kind of vibe.
Right.
But anyway, so Hey Arnold, again, for those who maybe don't remember it as much, although I don't know why, because it's to me one of the better aged shows, is about Arnold. What is his last name anyway? Do we ever know his last name?
I don't know if we ever.
I think he does. They never talk about it. But anyway, so Arnold is a 4th grader living in the inner city, which was kind of a departure as well because a lot of these other Nicktoons had people living in suburbs, right? Yes. And then you've got Arnold living in essentially like the Bronx. Like he's living in like not the slums, but basically almost the slums. He lives in a halfway house run by his grandparents. So you've got all kinds of weird, kooky people staying with him. Basically, you think of like Forrest Gump in the early scenes where he's a kid, where his mom runs like a I guess it's like a halfway house. So same thing where you have just weirdos that stay there. Except in Hey Arnold, they basically stay there for the entire series. So you've got like Mr. Nguyen, who's this refugee from Vietnam. You've got Oscar, who's this like Czechoslovakian like mooch off of his hot wife. You've got Mr. Potts, who's like he's like a butcher. No, he's not a butcher. What is Mr. Potts? What does he do? He's a short guy. He reminded me of Danny DeVito, honestly, if you remember. And I don't remember what he did. Anyway, so then he's got his friends. You've got Gerald, who is his best friend. You've got Helga Pataki, who is his enemy, but also has the hugest crush on him. That's a big plot point throughout the series. You've got who else? There's Stinky is one of his friends. You got Harold. You've got
Stoop Kid.
Well, Stoop Kid wasn't a regular. But
I know.
I think that was actually the first episode of Hey Arnold I ever saw was Stoop Kid. So basically, Stoop Kid was about a guy who was voiced by the same guy who played Buttnick in Salute Your Shorts. I forget his name. Is Danny something. But he also voiced Montana Max from Tiny Toons. Fun fact. But anyway, so he voices Stoop Kid, and he's just this kid that is too scared to get off of his stoop. Right. And so they finally convince him to get off a stoop, so for those of you who don't live in a city, a stoop is basically your front porch if you lived in the city. It's just your steps leading up to your townhouse or your apartment or whatever it was. But that's what I like about that show is that the plot points were really, I mean, they were set in the city and they probably couldn't have happened outside of the city setting that it was in. So it was really unique because, again, it was really the only show that had taken place in a city so far. And a lot of the plot points were based off of the fact that they lived in the city and it had to take place in the city. So it was very unique.
Yeah. Can we talk about Arnold's room for a second?
Oh, yeah, man. No, I was going to get there. Believe me. He's got basically this like penthouse attic with like skylights and a remote control that opens up his bed. And it was like that was the dream.
It was the coolest room in the world. Like,
yeah.
Maybe I'll turn this room into that one day.
Do you have enough space, man? I mean,
no, I think he was in a different dimension in that room, man.
I don't know, man. They don't ever explain it really, but yeah, I think one thing is for sure, it is the top of the house that he lives in, but like the bed is like motorized so that it comes out of the floor. Like of all the childhood bedrooms from TV, I think there's his, and then like the bedroom from Clarissa's bedroom, and Clarissa Explains It All. Do you remember that show?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I feel like. And I'll definitely talk about that show on a future episode this month. But like that was another one where like just the coolest looking bedroom, and coincidentally also in the attic, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think maybe I just always wanted an attic bedroom as a kid and never had one. But no, man, he had the greatest bedroom ever. Like. It was like the dream. You'll go on Facebook now and see like, 90s kids always wish they had this or whatever. And it's always Arnold's bedroom. That's like, I know it's almost a cliche to say you wanted his bedroom as a kid, but like it was the coolest thing at the time.
Yeah. Tell me one kid that didn't want that bedroom.
Seriously.
I will tell you they're a liar.
Or they didn't watch Hey Arnold, but even then they're probably a liar. So, well, listen, man, thumbs up for Arnold. I know he came out with a couple of movies as well. I didn't watch them though, so I couldn't.
I did not know he had movies actually.
Yeah, one was in theaters. I think the other one was like either Netflix or one of the streaming platforms. But I never watched it, so I don't know much about it. But Kablam. That's right. So Kablam came out a week later. That was almost like a cartoon variety show. Do you remember Kablam?
Yes, I loved Kablam.
Okay, see, and I love Kablam too, but not a lot of kids that I talk to now as adults have heard of it or remember it much.
Yeah, Kablam was essentially like Saturday Night Live, but for cartoons.
Yes, it was an animated Saturday Night Live. Where you had recurring sketches. It was a sketch show, basically.
Yeah.
Every week it was the same like characters in their own standalone kind of sketches. So you had, so you had Kablam, which like the hosts were Henry and June.
Yep.
But then they would bring you over to these different segments. So let's see. So what are like the Prometheus and Bob tapes? Do you remember that one?
Yep. It was the caveman and the
alien, or not the alien
monkey.
I guess he something like he was like an alien or something.
Yeah,
and basically he would introduce him. It was like modern technology he would give to the caveman, and the caveman would just mess it up.
Yeah, something bad always happened.
Yeah, it was the Prometheus and Bob tapes is what it was called.
Action League Now.
Action League Now. Oh my God. That, I think my favorite was Action League Now because it made me want to go play with my action figures, my toys again. Because Action League Now, for those of you who may not remember the show, Action League Now was technically it was a live action segment because they used real life action figures and toys, but they would basically like be like playing out plot points in like a house. Like it was how you would have played with your toys as a kid. And this was like if somebody basically just went to Goodwill and spent $20, these are the toys they would have had. Because it was so random. It wasn't anything consistent. Like you had one guy that was supposed to be like He-Man, but he didn't have clothes, so he was called the Flesh.
The Flesh.
He was super strong and super naked. You had Thunder Girl who flies like thunder. Anyway, so like basically it was whoever made the show was using their imagination with these toys that they found and going on different adventures throughout the house. So I'm like, that's what I was doing with my action figures. So I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm pretty sure I had my own version of it with my own toys and renamed a lot of my figures just so that I could play Action League Now.
Do you remember when I don't remember what it came with, but there was like a little thing that they had where they were bringing Kablam and other Nickelodeon shows to like 4 definition or 4D, where you would get these cards and it was Smell-O-Vision. And they would have different smells on the cards, and like different shows would tell you to go to, okay, now scratch your card and smell this. And some of them were like, I don't know, like barf or like horrible, horrible things. But I think Kablam's, I'm I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I didn't make this
No,
up,
I mean, I'll have to look it up. But
I think Kablam's was glass, and they just told you to smell your TV.
That sounds amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was like a deal with like Pizza Hut or like something like that, or if it was with. It might have just been with GAC or something.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know
remember.
GAC had like the different scented slimes.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I'll
But
have to find
I
that. I just
that's one
remember
thing,
that.
too.
It was just made me laugh really hard.
Well, you mentioned GAC. I got to figure out when I'm going to talk about that because I do want to. I feel like that's a huge part of Nickelodeon. It's like all the different toys and stuff you could get that weren't necessarily related to a show, but how do I talk about them? So anyway, I'm thinking about that. But it'll be a future episode because I didn't plan it out for today. But anyway, all right, man. So Kablam, I think one of those shows that was way ahead of its time. I feel like that one would if they were to bring it back, could very well it would do very well today. I feel in fact it's one of those where I feel like a lot of other shows kind of owe some of their success to what Kablam did because they would try the sketch comedy, like the stop motion animation part of it. Like I feel like Robot Chicken would be a big one that would owe it, their success to Kablam.
I was just putting that together too. I felt like, this is probably the start of what Robot Chicken is today.
And then he had like what was Celebrity Deathmatch. I feel like that would have been another one maybe that took inspiration.
Celebrity Deathmatch.
Yeah, no, I was. But anyway, so Kablam, 2 thumbs up again. Love that show as a kid. I have not seen it in a long time, but it's one that I feel like I remember it pretty vividly. So I feel like I really would enjoy it as an adult. So I feel like it would have aged pretty well. I just haven't had a chance to go back to it. The next one on the list, we have another 6 months before a new Nicktoon comes out, and this is 1997 now. We have the Angry Beavers.
Yes.
Do you remember that show?
Yeah. This is when I think Nickelodeon, because we'll talk about the next one that comes up because that one was more prevalent in my mind. But yeah. Angry Beavers was just what were their names? Drat and Dat?
It was Dag and Norbert.
Dag and Norbert. Okay.
Yeah.
I was close.
Were they brothers or were they friends? I think they were brothers.
I don't really know.
Yeah, I think they were brothers.
But they were exactly what they said. The name of the show, they were just 2 angry beavers that lived together, and it was about them living their life, I guess. It was weird.
And it was just random. They lived in the woods. So again, another unique setting. They were in the woods. They had a house, but they were like a cabin in the woods. And they had like, it's funny, like thinking about it out loud. I couldn't tell you a single friend of theirs that they had that would come on the show. I can only remember those 2.
Yeah,
but like,
same. I was about to say one, and I was like, nope, that was Cat Dog. So
yeah, I can't remember any of them. And I only remember one episode of the show, and it was one that I think they had hyped up before the show came out. So I think I might have extra remembered it. It was called Long in the Teeth, where Dag, who was probably the weirder, whinier of the 2 beavers, he decided to stop chewing and grow his teeth out because he's like, well, I'm just going to grow my teeth out because Norbert started doing it, and so he wanted to compete with him, and so he just decides to grow his teeth out, and they just get super long, and they basically ruin his whole life. But that's the only one I remember. That's one that I actually don't know if that one would have aged well because I have not seen that since it came out in the late 90s. So honestly, man, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I liked it. I didn't dislike it, but at the same time, like I don't have a lot of memories of it.
Yeah, the only episode that stuck out to me with that one was one of them made like a super popular song.
Okay.
And it was like I think it was like a disco like song, and it blew up. It got crazy popular, and then they wanted him to make another one. So he remade the same song, but like called it number 2 or something like that, where he just like threw in some extra words. And of course, everybody was very angry. That's the only episode I remember.
So he basically does what Nickelback does with most of their songs.
Whoa.
No, yes. And I mean that in the best of ways because I love Nickelback. I have said that before on the show. I'm a huge fan of Nickelback. But anyway.
Yes.
All right. So Angry Beavers. And yes, so I think you may have the same list that I do, which is good because the next one to come out, we actually had a few come out in 1998. That was a big year for them. We have Cat Dog coming out next year. So sounds like you loved Cat Dog. Then.
Oh, dude, I love Cat Dog. That's another song that's just stuck in my head. The theme song.
One fine day with a whoop and a purr, baby was born and it caused a little stir. It's funny. So there was a show that came out on PBS Kids and there's a point to this. Did you ever see the show? Well, it was after our time, so I hope not. But Dinosaur Train. Have you ever heard of that show?
No.
No. Okay. So it's like a 3D animated show about dinosaurs that time travel and learn all about other dinosaurs. It's like an educational show on PBS.
Okay.
But there's their theme song. It was like, one time there came along, there was Mr. and Mrs. Pteranodon. And so basically I'm like, this sounds really familiar. So I looked it up. So the guy who wrote Cat Dog's theme song wrote the theme song for Dinosaur Train.
Oh, so he did what Daggett and Norbert did. And
basically, he changed a few words, but no one got mad, so it was fine. But anyway, so great theme song. That one, I'm trying to remember the hype. I remember I first saw them in theaters before the Rugrats movie came out. They showed a Cat Dog short. Do you remember that?
No.
It was like a 10-minute little mini episode. It was all about dog eating hot sauce and tearing up their colon. Like, so Cat Dog for
yeah, we did
for those who don't remember Cat Dog, it was probably their weirdest show yet, because we've had anthropomorphic animals, but this is the first time we've had two animals that are basically one body. This is basically a weird Siamese twin situation. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
So you've got a dog on one end and a cat on the other, and the less you think about what happens, with them, the better, because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
They're joined at the torso, so like they don't have hind legs. We'll say that
they don't have hind legs. We'll say this: they don't have anything on the back end.
Right.
So anyway, so it's got to go somewhere. That's all I'm going to say. But if you can suspend disbelief for that, it is actually a really fun show, because it's almost like an Odd Couple type show where you've got Cat, who is very kind of proper and organized and neat. He's like he's the straight-laced, straight man, to Dog, who is this kind of just goofy, lovable, kind of sloppy, crazy, his brother technically, but he's kind of he's the Oscar to Cat's Felix, if you ever watched The Odd Couple back in the day. And so they go around and they got these, they got friends, they've got but really, and it's funny because I don't know if I remember a single episode plot point, but I remember loving the show. What about you? Do you have any specific episodes that you remember?
Nothing that I like specifically remember. I do, but I mean, it definitely had more staying power than the Angry Beavers for me, because I do remember the side characters. Remember
you had Winslow, the little blue guy.
Yeah, the mouse that lived in their house.
He was a mouse, right? Yeah. Okay. And then you've got the gang of dogs.
The gang of dogs that they would always chase down Cat.
Yep.
And try to beat him up.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they like Dog. They were cool with Dog, though. That was the funny thing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he's cool, but your attachment there, we don't like him because he's a cat. So
but it's just a constant battle of Cat who cares too much about what the public opinion is of him. Yes. And Dog that doesn't care about anything.
Yes. Which, let's be honest, that's kind of a part of all of us if you think about it, right? So, part of you is like, well, man, I really should put on pants today. And the other half's like, you know what? No. It's fine. I can go to Kroger wearing, basketball shorts and sandals and socks. Like, I don't care, Going to church, whatever, man. He'll forgive me. Big guy upstairs.
Right.
Anyway, so no, I like Cat Dog. That would be one, if they were to bring it back, I would watch it. I don't remember enough about it to know if it has aged as well as some of the other ones that I have watched.
I couldn't tell you the last time I watched it.
No, that's the thing. And I've got the Paramount Plus subscription. I think all the Nicktoons are on there. I just need to, that's one of those where I just need to sit down and go back and actually watch some of these. Especially if I do like follow-up episodes here on the podcast, I'll probably do some, maybe like a retrospective on some of these series, because there's a lot to be said with some of these. We're kind of just glossing over a lot of these, but there's a lot we can talk about, especially with some of the earlier ones like Rugrats and Doug and everything like that. So in 1998, we also had this one, Oh Yeah, Cartoons. Do you remember that show?
Not at all.
I barely remember that show, to the point where I couldn't tell you really what it's about. I just remember it was a variety type show. I think a sketch show, kind of like Kablam, if I recall correctly. Okay. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember more about the show that came out afterwards, The Wild Thornberrys.
The Wild Thornberrys, I do remember. I loved that show.
Yes, I love that. That's one that I remember several episodes. So the plot point of Wild Thornberrys was basically you have Eliza Thornberry, the main character. She's a tween-aged girl. I don't know, probably like 10 or 11, I think. Yep. And she travels with her family. Her parents are nature documentarians. And so they go around traveling the world shooting nature documentaries. And and then there's also her older sister, Debbie. And then there is their their pets, their companion chimpanzee Darwin.
Yep.
And then you have Donnie, who was a wild man that they adopt, a bush babe. What would you call him? What was he?
He was just he was just a kid that was raised by animals. I don't know.
And so they found him, and they adopted him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. The spin on it was you expect the monkey or the chimp to be the crazy one, but he was very well educated.
He was. Well, and here's the whole premise of the show is not only is she traveling with her family for these documentaries, boom, she can actually talk to animals.
Right. That's right. I forgot about that part.
That's like the main point of the show, dude.
I know. Dude, it's probably been since longer than I've talked to you.
And it's funny because so Eliza Thornberry, there's also a character called Eliza Doolittle, who I think is related to, maybe not related to, but like Dr. Doolittle, who could also talk to animals. So I'm almost wondering if that was the connection there. But anyway, so her family does not know she can talk to animals, but Eliza Thornberry can talk to animals. So every time they go on an adventure for the nature documentary that they're shooting, Eliza somehow gets into trouble and has to go help out animals, and she talks. So it's cool because she can talk to Darwin, the chimpanzee, who's just, again, like you said, this organized, well-spoken animal. But Donnie, who's this human, she can't talk to because he just speaks gibberish.
Right.
Okay, fun fact about the wild thornberries, because there's a lot of them. Did you know that Donnie was voiced by Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
I did not know that.
Well, now you do. So anytime you hear that is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, also known as Needles from Back to the Future 2.
Wow. Flea did a lot, huh?
As I'm saying, Flea has been around. And then, of course, her father, voiced by the always awesome Tim Curry. And one of his few, well, not one of his few, I think he did a lot of voice work later on in his career, but this was the one that I knew him for as far as voice work goes, was Tim Curry. And so that was terrific. And then Danielle Harris, who you may recall from she was in several movies in the 80s, including Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. She played Jamie Lloyd, the little girl that was Michael's niece. So she voices Debbie, the older sister, in the Wild Thornberries. So anyway. No idea. So that was a good one. And again, that one had a lot of staying power, almost 100 episodes. It was on for 5 seasons and had a crossover film with the Rugrats. The Rugrats Go Wild. I don't know the premise. I've never seen it. So I don't know how they get mixed up with the Rugrats crew.
I've seen it, but I don't remember it at all.
The only thing I remember from the trailers was that because Eliza could talk to animals, she was able to talk to Spike, Tommy's dog. And he was voiced by Bruce Willis.
That's hilarious. That's fantastic.
So that's the only thing I could tell you about that movie. Let's see here. So after Wild Thornberries, we have, well, I guess this is where we've gotten to it now, 1999, but arguably the most famous Nicktoon, and according to this list on Wikipedia, the only one from that era that is still going strong at almost 300 episodes, SpongeBob SquarePants. So you can't really say, do you remember SpongeBob SquarePants? Because it's still on.
I've never even heard of it.
So we've had 13 official seasons. I know they took a big break for a few years, but 13 seasons, again, the longest running. Oh my God, I just burped in the microphone.
How dare you? That's okay. That would be very welcome in all of these Nicktoons. So
holy Moses, it would, wouldn't it? Wow. I don't know. Maybe I'll edit that out. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep the burp in. We'll see how it sounds. Anyway, SpongeBob SquarePants. It's weird because you can be nostalgic for it, but the fact that it's been going strong for 24 years almost at this point. I mean, is it a nostalgia trip or is it just a show that's still on? Like, would you put this in the same category, for example, as The Simpsons? Or like South Park or Family Guy?
Not until you asked me that question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but now that you say that, yeah, you kind of have to, right?
But can you still put it in the same comparison as classic Nicktoons that aren't around anymore, or no, because it's still an ongoing show that is pretty much kept consistent for, over 20 years?
Man, I really don't know. That's tough.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on SpongeBob as a whole? Do you enjoy it?
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
have you watched it recently? Because I haven't. I have changed.
I have not.
Okay.
Didn't the creator pass recently?
Stephen Hillard, he did. Yeah, it was in the last couple of years, I think. he had passed away, but they're still making the show, obviously. But
right.
And they've had several. Again, I never saw any of the movies. I know there were several movies, a lot of video games, but no, actually, I do. I won't brag, but I actually do a pretty good SpongeBob SquarePants impression.
I think I remember that.
Do you remember that? I think because I did it in college. That was how I would get girls to talk to me. Was I would do I would do weird impressions. But SpongeBob, man, that's again. I think, like you said, it's. I don't know if you can consider it a classic because it's still around. Again, it's one of those where I know a lot of the episodes of that. I watched a lot of SpongeBob. Because even though I was a little bit older, it was funny to me as a teenager. It was just funny. It didn't feel stupid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I think it's still funny today.
My kids love it. They will. It's on like Amazon Prime. You can stream it. They will put it on and they will watch like 2 hours straight of SpongeBob episodes. So no, they are huge fans. Eli, my youngest, he's 4. He's got like a SpongeBob pinball machine upstairs in his room, like a little mini one, like a little plastic pinball kind of deal, nothing crazy. But anyway, so he loves SpongeBob though. So SpongeBob in our house definitely, I think, still holds up because it's still being made. So it's not fair to compare it to some of the other ones here. But anyway, so that was in 99. We had one more coming out here in 99. Just a few months later, we have Rocket Power. Do you remember that show?
Yes, I loved Rocket Power.
Yeah,
it was just a young preteens, maybe teenagers.
Yeah,
that were just like the best at sports. Any sport possible, they were really good at.
They did. They did. They lived in in California, I think, on the West Coast or something like that. And they just all day they would just do like extreme, because that was the whole, when it came out, that was like the X Games and all the extreme sports were really popular. So you had these kids that would do like snowboarding and rollerblading and ice skating and skateboarding. And it was
played hockey, street hockey.
Yeah, they basically did everything. And I wasn't a huge sports guy growing up. I didn't play a lot of sports, but like that was still cool to watch.
Yeah, I'm still not a huge sports guy, but
no,
I loved Rocket Power, and I will say that I don't know if it's because of this, but I definitely played a lot of street hockey growing up. Like on my street, we were just all on rollerblades playing street hockey. The family that lived on the corner, it used to be a church, and they like remodeled it for their home.
Yeah.
But they like took all the pews and stuff out of like the main area.
Oh, and, nice.
Dude, we were playing street hockey inside that church.
That's amazing.
Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah. See, for me, if I were to have played roller hockey, which I didn't, maybe once, but the inspiration for me would have been like the Mighty Ducks.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been like the reason I played roller hockey. But like I said, Rocket Power is a great show. I remember watching it, but again, it didn't stand out to me as much. Like I couldn't tell you any of the I just remember there were cool kids doing cool things and on wheels. It's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So fast forward a year, we're now in 2000. We had another show come out, As Told by Ginger. Do you remember that show? I
do, a little bit. I didn't watch it too much, but...
So I feel like that one, because I watched it a little bit as well, I feel like that was kind of like the first Nicktoon that was geared towards girls. Like
I think
because it was about a teenage girl who was navigating, it was maybe junior high school or something.
Yeah.
And so, but it was all about problems that maybe girls would have gone through at the time. So it didn't catch my interest as much. There was one episode I remember where Ginger has lice, or one of the kids in class has lice.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the girl's name, but like the popular girl in the class, like she was super snooty and stuck up and like, oh, get away, you're gross if you have lice. And then it turned out that she had lice because apparently she like washed her hair too much and the lice just out there.
That's what I learned. Apparently lice prefer very clean hair so they can move around and breed.
Yes. Yeah. And I never had lice, but
me either.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a learning experience, but that's the only one I remember. So again, I don't think I was the target audience. So if you're listening to this and you maybe you were a girl in the late 90s or 2000s and could relate, let me know, shoot us a comment or whatever. And, let us know your thoughts. Cause I don't have a lot to say. I wish I could say more. Cause I remember it being a good show, just not one that was for me. Then we move on to, I'd say probably other than Rugrats, the other most popular show, because it lasted for 16 years. I mean, 10 seasons, 170 episodes. The Fairly Odd Parents. That's another one that I remember loving.
Yeah, Fairly Odd Parents is solid.
Yeah. That's another one that I actually just watched the other day with my kids, and they thought it was terrific. So they're kind of going through that slowly but surely as well. But it was, so The Fairly Odd Parents was about a little boy named Timmy who, for some reason or another, ends up getting a pair of fairy godparents that can grant him wishes whenever he wants, and hijinks ensue. And that's basically the whole premise of the show. What I thought was interesting, though, about The Fairly Odd Parents is the animation style. It very much reminded me more so, not of Nickelodeon, but more like a Cartoon Network style show.
You know, if we weren't going through this list, for whatever in my mind, I thought it was Disney.
You thought it was and you thought it was Disney? Because it doesn't feel like a stereotypical Nickelodeon show.
Yeah.
You know, it was really zany and weird. And yeah, there was some stuff that was definitely like out there and wild, you know, in previous shows, like the Wild Thornberrys, you could talk to animals, but like this one was just zany. It was about, I mean, because it was very much, it reminded me of a Cartoon Network type show where every episode, there wasn't really like you could watch any episode in any order and kind of get the gist. It was very basic, and it wasn't bad. I liked it, but it didn't feel like a Nickelodeon show. To me, it did not. And maybe that's the reason I stopped watching Nickelodeon, because to be honest with you, other than maybe Action League Now, which was a very short-lived series on its own, I don't really have any other memories of Nicktoons after Fairly Odd Parents. So I'm almost wondering if maybe it turned me off to Nickelodeon cartoons because it just didn't feel like a Nickelodeon cartoon, or I was just, I mean, this point, I was 14 years old. I was watching other things. I don't know. But so as far as the Fairly Odd Parents go, I mean, you liked it though? Like, do you remember watching it?
Yeah.
You just thought it was on the Disney Channel.
I really did, but it's not uncommon for me and my wife to just throw it on when we're just trying.
So that's one that has stood the test of time for you. It's still pretty.
Yeah, it's still pretty good. Have you heard the fun conspiracy theory about Trixie's best friend?
No. How
she is also a fairy godparent.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look at like the eyes of I think the fairies have pupils.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the only kid in the school, and she's always with Trixie, that has pupils.
Interesting. So she could theoretically be one. She could. Never...
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. No, I never thought about it, to be honest with you, but that's interesting now that you mention it.
I came across it somewhere. Yeah,
I have to go back and I'm going to go back.
Veronica. Veronica is the only one.
Veronica. Okay. All right. Well, at this point, that pretty much ends my viewing of Nicktoons, but I know there's one more here on the list that you can speak to. There's a couple more, actually.
There's a couple more, yeah.
But so you're going to have to drive these next few. So in 2001, we had the Fairly Odd Parents. We also had a show called Invader Zim. Now, I know zero, and I'm talking zero about Invader Zim. So, dude, paint me a picture here. What is that show about?
So Invader Zim is about an alien that invades Earth.
Okay.
He kind of invades Earth on accident because he was kind of the outcast of his race, of his alien race.
Okay.
And they just threw him on a ship to get rid of him, and they told him to go this place, and he stumbles across Earth. He's got a companion robot that was literally, they just scooped up a bunch of parts and put in the head of the robot, and it turned on and is not very smart at all. But yeah, he comes and he's trying to take over the Earth. He's quickly found out about by one of the kids in his class, and the whole premise is Zim is doing these crazy things to the Earth, and that kid is trying to expose him for being an alien.
Okay. All right. I mean, that sounds basic enough. So, because here's the thing. This is one of those shows that you always see on all the list of shows that ended too soon, or, bring back these shows. I feel like Invader Zim is definitely one of those. And having never watched it, I can't say one way or the other if it should. But, I mean, why would there be so much hype behind the show? What was the big deal?
I don't know. I think it was just zany and weird. And
yeah.
I feel like it's one of those shows that if it had come out in the time of like Cat Dog or things like that, or even SpongeBob, it probably would have had more staying power. But I think maybe, like you said, the audience that Nickelodeon had its grasp on is like moving out. But maybe that's just our thought process because
we were, well, that's the thing is you think about it. Cause I mean, they've had, I mean, I'm looking through, there's still dozens of cartoons that have come out since these Nicktoons, but they don't have the staying power, excuse me. Some of them are only like 1 or 2 seasons. And so like, they don't, I don't know. Like, I feel like this was kind of like we're over the peak. We're past the peak of Nicktoons with this, with these shows.
Yeah.
And this is maybe one that kind of unfortunately may have slipped through the cracks where it was good. There was only 27 episodes made, so there wasn't even a lot of episodes. So it was one of those that, again, I guess I can understand people saying it ended too soon if it was, if it really was that good and it just didn't get a fair shot. Whereas if it had come out maybe in like 98 or 99, it would have, gotten a couple more seasons. So the only other one here, we talked a little bit about Danny Phantom before we started recording. I never watched that. I think it's like a superhero show or something, right?
Yeah, his parents are like ghost hunters or something, and they find the spectral world, and he basically gets brought into where he becomes a ghost, but has, I don't know, he's got like ghost powers. I don't know more than that.
That's more than I know. And then, but the only other one on this list, and I think you touched on it at the start of this episode, but was it's considered a Nicktoon, even though it's definitely, from what I've heard, just a genuinely good show, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes, Avatar: The Last Airbender is fantastic. It is about a young boy who is the Avatar, which is the master of all 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Basically, he was trying to escape his duties of being the Avatar because he was just a kid and wanted to be a kid.
Yeah.
Gets frozen, and the world goes on without him for several years. Fire Nation takes over, and couple kids find him, and yeah, he's just going through the adventure of learning to be the Avatar and trying to bring peace back to the world. And it's an awesome actiony hero show, but it also has a lot of moral lessons. It teaches, it's not one to shy away from things, and it's just fantastic through and through. It was Nickelodeon's attempt at bringing anime or an anime style show to the West. So
yeah,
and it's from Nickelodeon. It's not.
Yeah. It's not a Japanese show. It's an American show, but it is very heavily inspired by Japanese anime, because even that plot point sounds like something you'd see out of a classic 1990s anime from Japan. And no, it's definitely on my list, and I do want to watch it. I just, again, need to find the time because it is a great show, and I've heard really good things. And I know there's even a spin-off series.
Yeah, there's the Legend of Korra. There's a spin-off series. I didn't get that one. Just didn't capture me as well as the first one. But they just announced that they're doing a 3rd series as well. Focusing on the Earthbender Avatar. So it's gonna be interesting. Hopefully that goes well. It's
all right. Yeah, man. Well, listen, that kind of covers our discussion of these different Nicktoons themselves, but let's talk about some of the merchandise that was tied to it, because I know we talked. Actually, forget merchandise. Let's specifically talk about video games, because merchandise we could talk for hours, because there were so many different things: keychains, books, toys, clothes, whatever. But the ones that stood out to me the most were some of the video games. And so I know you mentioned Real Monsters as one of the video games you remember playing. Were there any other ones that you have memories of actually playing?
Oh, yeah, man. Rugrats for sure. The Rugrats.
Which one? There's a few. I know there was like a few. Which one were you talking about? Do you remember?
I want to say it was the first one. I don't think it...
Like on PlayStation 1 where you go around and... I remember that one. And the reason I remember that one is because it was so cool that you could go into the episodes.
Right.
Actually,
yeah.
You would play through the episodes.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I remember the whole they had like a whole mini golf like side thing in that game, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, because that was the Ice Cream Mountain episode.
Yeah.
Where, so anyway, no, I remember that. I love that game. There was another Rugrats game I played on PC. It was my first ever like point and click game, where like you had to like solve puzzles by like looking at the screen.
I know. I
can't remember what it's called. I think it was just called Rugrats, but I couldn't tell you for sure. But I remember that my uncle had gotten that for me for my PC, and I wasn't really a computer gamer, so I didn't have a lot of computer games. But that one I remembered loving. What else? Did you ever play the Ren and Stimpy game on Sega or Super Nintendo?
Yes. Yes.
Loved that game.
I forgot that I had until now.
Well, and it's funny because if you go back and play that, it's such a weird game.
Yeah.
And it's is very in line with the show.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it follows the show perfectly.
Very well. But anyway, so what else? I'm trying to think. I didn't play a lot of Alvaro Monsters. In fact, I think the first time I played it was on an emulator as an adult because I always would see it in like magazines and like the commercial on TV for it and stuff. And I know, so basically the whole idea is that you switch between the monsters and like can use their powers and just navigate the levels.
Yeah, it was similar premise, like of you just kind of go through the show. I don't think it was specific episodes or anything, but
yeah.
You just had to use them to solve puzzles and use their different abilities.
Kind of a classic platformer, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of other, like, because I know SpongeBob, there was a ton of games for SpongeBob. I never played a single one of them, though, so I couldn't tell you anything about them.
They just remade one not too long ago.
They did. For the Nintendo Switch, it was like the Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Yeah.
Which was a PlayStation 1 game, I think.
Or
maybe PlayStation 2. I don't know. I know it was very popular back in the day, which is why they brought it back. I know they've had like the Nicktoons kart racing game where you can be all the classic Nicktoons.
Yeah, you're not a company until you've put out a kart racing game, right?
At this point, I mean, yeah, seriously. If you're not putting out a kart racing game, you're doing something wrong with your video game franchises. Or honestly, at this point, a Smash style game, a brawling, you know, okay, so when it comes to Smash Brothers, it's a fighting game, but it's a specific type. What do you call that?
They're called, I believe, platform fighters.
Platform fighters, because the whole idea is you want to knock people off the sides.
Right.
So I get that. Okay, so yeah, so there's so many of those. There's one that just came out for Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl or something like that.
We ran a couple tournaments with that.
What do you think? Have you played it? What do you think?
It needs a lot of work.
Yeah,
but it's fun. It's really fun.
But it's not Smash.
But it's not Smash. Smash is hard to beat, man.
Well, and that's the thing is they've had a 25-year run of it now. Which is crazy to think about, and so I mean, maybe not 25. I guess it came out in 99, the first one or whatever. So, but over 20 years.
Yeah, over 20 years.
And so, yeah, it's just not. It's going to be hard to beat them, unless you've got people that maybe worked for Nintendo building those games. But anyway, other than that, though, man, I mean, are there any other like video games you can remember?
Not that I can really think of that I actually like sat down and played through.
Yeah. No, same here. So, but those were a few, and they were again classic console games. So, like the latest would have been like PS1, but like it was the Sega, the Sega and Super Nintendo type games. So, well, listen, man, that brings us to a segment of the show that we haven't done in a while, but we're bringing it back. Before we came on here and started recording, I gave you the choice. I said you can either bring out a guest list, a top 10 list, or you can play ATFQ, answer the question, and so you opted for ATFQ. So what I'm going to do, well, first off, let's go ahead and cue the music. And now for everyone's new second favorite game show, it's ATFQ, or Answer the Questions. And now let me explain the rules to ATFQ. It is basically 10 questions, and we're going to see how many you can get right out of 10. And honestly, that's basically it. So there's really not a lot to it. But I have the 10 questions here, courtesy of a BuzzFeed quiz. So don't go cheating on me and go looking these up because I'm watching you. Okay. Let's go through these. These are going to be multiple choice, okay? So I'm making it pretty easy for you here.
All right,
at least I think I am. Here we go. Question number 1. Where does rocket power take place? Is it A, Ocean Beach, B, Ocean Shores, C, Seaside, or D, Oceanside?
God. Man. I'll say Ocean Shores.
And you would be correct.
Yes.
Excellent.
Killing it.
All right. I'll do a good start here. All right, undefeated here. Let's go ahead and look at question number 2. What tool does Tommy Pickles carry around in his diaper?
Oh, a screwdriver.
Oh, I didn't even need to give you the choices.
Yeah.
You are correct. Easy. Very good. Okay, question number 3. Who is Doug Funny's love interest?
Patty Mayonnaise.
There it is. You know what? I'll tell you what I'll do just to keep things moving here. If you know the answer, just shout it out. But if you need me to give you the choices, I'll give you the choices.
Okay.
How about that?
All right.
Okay. Question number 4. What is the name of Angelica Pickles' doll?
Ooh. All right. I think I might need the choices.
Need the choices? Okay.
Yeah. It just escaped my brain.
All right. Here we go. Is it Samantha? Is it Erica? Is it Cynthia or is it Veronica?
Cynthia.
It is Cynthia. You are correct. Okay. Question number 5. What is the name of Rocco's dog?
Oh, I have no idea on this one.
Is it A, Pork Chop? Is it B, Spunky? Is it C, Punky? Or is it D, Rocky?
I'm going to say Spunky.
And you would be correct.
Yes.
Excellent job there. Okay, we move on now to question number 6. What type of animal is Stimpy?
He's a cat, right?
He is a cat. You are absolutely correct. Okay, question number 7. True or false? Donnie was adopted into the Thornberry family.
True.
Correct. He was adopted into the family. That is correct. Okay. Let's see. Question number 8. Or was that number 8?
I don't know, man. You're the one asking questions.
All right. Well, here we go. Let's go question number... let's go question number... question number 8. Here we go. This is another rocket power question. What sport does Auto Rocket not participate in? Is it snowboarding? Is it skiing? Is it skateboarding? Or is it roller hockey?
Skiing.
You are correct. It is skiing. All the other 3 he has done in the show. Okay. Question number 9. The trio of dogs that torment Cat in the show Cat Dog are known as what?
Yeah, I'm going to need those choices, man.
Okay. Is it A, the Dog Gang? Is it B, the Schoolyard Dogs? Is it C, the Bulldogs? Or is it D, the Greaser Dogs?
I want to say the Greaser Dogs.
And you would be correct.
I'm killing it.
You are killing it, bro. Okay. All right. Last question. I don't know what number and who gives a shit. Here we go. What nickname does Arnold's grandpa call him?
Ooh. I need the choices.
Okay.
Feel bad, but I do.
Is it A, young man? Is it B, short guy? Is it C, short man? Or is it D, shorty?
I'm going to say short man.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, that's my final answer.
Well, you got it correct.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many there were here, but you got all of them correct. So perfect score, perfect 10, whatever the hell the number was, you got it. So congratulations, man. You are officially the first undefeated participant in ATFQ.
Let's go.
All right. So, well, listen, that just means you're going to have to come back and do another one here. So
I'm okay with that.
Well, listen, I got another episode I'm doing for next week, man. We're talking all about Nickelodeon gas, games and sports. You want to do that one with me?
Oh, I've got the guts to do that.
Do you have it?
I have it. Guts.
Let's rock.
Anyway, give me a piece of that aggro crag, dude.
There it is, man. The glowing radical rock. All right. Well, listen, before we wrap up, and I want to give you a chance to kind of, talk about what's going on with Texoma. But before we wrap up here, I'm going to throw something at you. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so I apologize.
It's all good.
If you were to make a Nicktoons Mount Rushmore, so four statues upon it, what would be your Nickelodeon Nicktoons Mount Rushmore?
Wow. Doug Funny, for sure.
Okay. And we're talking shows, yeah. So it doesn't have to be. It can be characters, but we're talking.
I gotta go with specific characters. Man.
That's fine. Let's do that. So we got Doug Funny,
Tommy Pickles. I think I'm gonna give one to. They're gonna share one. Prometheus and Bob. I just loved them so much.
Okay, so Kablam's Prometheus and Bob. All right, I'll count that as one statue. Absolutely. And number 4, we got one more.
Got to give it to Aang from Avatar.
Okay. All right, man. So that's, you know what? You pretty much covered the entire spectrum of Nicktoons from our childhood with those.
I tried, man.
No, very good. I like that. Oh, man. Well, listen. Yeah, man. So like I said, before we wrap up here, let's talk about it. So Texoma Esports, you've got so you've been doing a lot of great events. What you got coming up here? We're in, we're in January 23. So what you got coming down the pipe?
Yeah. So, we're going to be back at MSU College later this month, January 21st. Hopefully this episode comes out before then. If not, you missed it. You missed a great event. No, so we're going to be having a Smash Brothers tournament at MSU College in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Okay.
Feel free to come on out. We take people from all skills and ages and stuff, so come test your skills if you're in the area.
Nice.
If not, you can check us out on pretty much any social media available at Texoma Esports. We're on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it, we're there. If we're not there, let us know so we can be there.
So for those who aren't, maybe in kind of that Texas, Oklahoma area, what's the best way for a non-local to get involved with you guys?
Just hit us up on social media.
Awesome.
Yeah, watch our Twitch streams every tournament that we do. We try to do locals at least once a month, if not twice a month. We're kind of in a lull season right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, come check us out on Twitch. We stream all of our tournaments there, twitch.tv/Texoma_esports.
Beautiful. Awesome, man. Well, Derek, thank you again for coming on today, man. And you and I will be back next week as we talk all about Nickelodeon Gas, also known as Games and Sports. So thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude. It's been a pleasure.
And guys, that'll wrap up the Nicktoons episode of the Nonstop. Sorry, I screwed it up again. The New Year's Nonstop Nicktoons Nickelodeon Extravaganza. Jesus. Okay, hold on.
You want to try again?
I'm going to try that one again. The New Year's Nonstop Nickelodeon Extravaganza.
There you go.
I'm pretty sure I got it right that time. But anyway, guys, all month long, we're talking Nickelodeon. So, by the way, if you are not checking us out, we are on Facebook as well. If you search Generation S Podcast, we're also on TikTok under Gen_S Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, on YouTube. We've got some YouTube exclusive content right now. It's a lot of stuff about pro wrestling because that's a big thing for me growing up was pro wrestling. So we're doing some cool stuff there. But I've got plans for other content in 2023. Oh, by the way, Derek,
yes.
This is the first podcast of the new year, and so I figured I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. Did you make any New Year's resolutions this year?
Hopefully ones that I can keep up with. But yeah, man, definitely. Not it's the same old, but just be healthier, just get in shape.
Yeah.
Need to hit the gym again, man.
It's just funny how every year we have to be healthier again for some reason. So
I want to fit my wedding suit again,
Hey, there you go. Yeah, I probably could. Yeah, maybe I could. I'd have to see. It's who knows. But anyway, well, for me, it is as far as the podcast goes, I definitely want to make sure I'm still consistent with getting weekly episodes out. And I think a big goal for me is growing the YouTube channel. So I'm going to start putting out more content on there. Again, if you're a wrestling fan, we've got an ECW retrospective that's going to be coming out soon, where every week we review an episode of ECW television. I've got some plans in the works for some unboxing videos, if I can get a hold of some classic 90s merchandise. I've also got some other cool plans that are... well, no, I don't want to say too much because I don't know when it's going to come out and I don't want to get people too excited, but let's just say it'll be near and dear to my heart from a franchise perspective. That's all I'm going to say. But with that, guys, thank you so much for checking this episode out. Make sure you have subscribed and get notified every time we put out a new episode, which, fingers crossed, is every Wednesday, which means that if we were recording this on a Monday, it's coming out in 2 days. But anyway, guys, thank you for coming out. And if you know anyone else that is part of this generation, this great generation that grew up in the 90s, in the early 2000s, there's a lot to talk about. And if you want to see the podcast grow, you got to let people know about it, right? Go tell a friend. That's the word of mouth is the best way to promote shows. And so I'm asking you, if you know people that would appreciate this show, let them know about it. They can listen to it on any of their favorite podcast platforms, including the one that you're listening to it right now. So thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.